The sound of the wind echoes through the empty ranch. The horses are still. The sunrise struggles to break through the clouds. A single hat rests on a wooden fence, Tim's old cowboy hat. Everything feels different now. Heartland has always been a place of healing, but today, it feels broken. The laughter, the warmth, the familiar call of Tim's voice, all gone. And yet somewhere deep in the silence, you can almost hear him saying, "Take care of them, Amy. Take care of the ranch." This is where Heartland's story slows, where family faces its hardest goodbye. The morning is cold and still. Mist hangs low over the fields of Heartland, soft and ghostly like the world itself is mourning. The camera moves slowly across the landscape. The barn doors creak open. The horses stand quietly, heads low, their breath visible in the chilly air. The world feels heavy, slower than usual. A photograph rests on the wooden table inside the house, Tim Fleming. Smiling proudly beside his horse Champ, beside the frame lies his worn-out gloves and a folded bandana. The fire in the hearth burns low, barely alive, just like the spirit of the family that once glowed with strength and laughter. Lou stands in the kitchen, her eyes red from crying. She stares blankly at the kettle boiling, lost in thought. The sound of water bubbling becomes louder, almost deafening, till she finally turns it off and whispers softly, "He was supposed to be here today. We were supposed to fix things." Her voice breaks. Outside, Jack leans against the fence, his hat pulled low to hide his face. He watches Amy from a distance. She's standing in the pasture beside Spartan. Running her hand down the horse's mane, silent, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The morning sun touches her face, but there's no warmth in it. Jack finally speaks, his voice rough with emotion. "You know that man could be the most stubborn soul on earth, but he had a good heart." Amy doesn't look at him. Her lips tremble as she replies softly, "He did, Grandpa. He really did." Soft piano melody begins to play in the background. Flashbacks begin to roll. Tim riding through the ranch, laughing with Lou, teaching Amy how to rope, standing proudly at the rodeo. His life was messy, imperfect, but full of heart. The narration fades in. The heart of Heartland beats strong because of him. Through every storm, every mistake, every second chance, he kept fighting. But even the strongest hearts must rest. Cut to Katie sitting on the porch steps, clutching a folded note, something Tim wrote her last week. She doesn't open it. Instead, she whispers, "I'll read it when I'm ready." The camera pans across the ranch. Every corner tells a story. Every wooden post feels alive with his memory. The wind picks up again, carrying the faint echo of horses galloping. The voiceover returns. Softer this time. Some mornings bring light. Others bring loss. But at Heartland, even in the quietest grief, love never leaves. The screen fades to black. The faint sound of a heartbeat lingers, steady at first. Then, fading slowly into silence, the sun finally breaks through the clouds. But it doesn't bring warmth, only light that feels too bright for such a dark day. The news has already traveled beyond the ranch. What began as a whisper in the early morning has now become a wave of sorrow rolling through Hudson. Tim Fleming, gone. The words don't feel real. They hang heavy in the air, echoing through every barn, every heart that ever knew him. At Maggie's diner, the usual chatter has faded to silence. Cups of coffee sit untouched on the tables. Someone set down an old photograph of Tim and Jack from their rodeo days on the counter. The edges are worn, the smiles frozen in time. Lisa walks in quietly, removes her hat, and sets it down beside the photo. Her voice cracks when she says, "He always said he'd go out with his boots on. Guess he kept his word." Back at Heartland, the phone keeps ringing. Old friends, ranch hands, people who once trained with Tim, all calling, all asking the same question, "Is it true?" Each ring feels like another reminder that it isn't a dream. Lou answers, her voice trembling but steady. "Yes, it's true." Then silence. She doesn't have the strength for more. Amy sits alone in the barn loft. The smell of hay fills the air, familiar and comforting, but today it feels different, emptier. She stares at the saddle Tim used last week, still resting on the wooden rail. A tear slips down her cheek before she can stop it. You promised you'd teach me that new technique next week, she whispers to no one. Her voice is soft, barely audible, but it carries through the barn like a ghost of a memory. Outside, the world keeps moving, horses shifting, the wind rustling the trees, but inside Heartland, time stands still. Georgie walks into the barn, holding her phone tightly. Amy, she says gently, people are posting tributes online. Pictures, stories. They all loved him. Amy nods but doesn't reply. She can't. The scene shifts, a montage of people across Hudson reacting. Ty's old friends from the rodeo share memories. Mallory is seen lighting a candle by the river. Caleb leans against his truck, eyes closed, whispering a quiet prayer. Then a slow transition back to Heartland. The family gathers around the living room. Jack holds his coffee cup but doesn't drink. Lou sits beside him, her hand on his shoulder. The sound of the old clock ticking fills the silence. Finally, Jack speaks. His voice is rough but full of heart. You know, that fool made me angry more times than I can count. But he loved this place. He loved all of us. He just didn't always know how to show it. Amy wipes her tears and looks at him. He showed it in his own way, Grandpa. Every argument, every fight, he just wanted to protect us. Lou nods quietly. He was stubborn. But maybe that's why Heartland survived everything. Because he never gave up. The camera pans out slowly, the family sitting together, the fire crackling low. Tim's picture on the mantle glowing softly in the dim light. The voiceover fades in again. Steady and calm, news spreads fast. But grief moves slower. In a small town like Hudson, every heart feels the loss. Because some people don't just live in a place, they become it. And Tim Fleming was Heartland. The screen fades to black again, leaving only the soft sound of a horse neighing in the distance. The ranch's quiet way of saying goodbye. The sky is dressed in gray, as if even the heavens know how much Heartland is hurting. The air feels still, heavy with the weight of goodbye. A slow wind moves across the churchyard, carrying the faint scent of pine and rain. Today, the land stands still, waiting, mourning, remembering. The funeral is small, simple, just like Tim would have wanted. A wooden casket rests beneath the tall oak tree behind the old church. The same tree where he once tied his horse after Sunday service. His hat sits gently on top, beside a single white rose. Around him stand the people whose lives he shaped, some through love, some through stubbornness, and some through lessons only Tim could teach. Amy stands beside Lou, both dressed in black, their hands trembling but joined together. They haven't stood this close in months, but grief has a way of pulling family back into place. Amy's eyes are fixed on the casket, her lips trembling as she whispers to herself, "You always said life was a ride, Dad. I just didn't know yours would end this soon." Lou glances at her sister and squeezes her hand gently. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't need to. Sometimes silence says everything. Katie hides behind Lou, clutching a small photo she drew of Tim riding a horse. Her eyes are red but brave. Jack stands near the front, hat in hand, his weathered face soft with sorrow. He looks at the casket and mutters under his breath, "You finally beat me to the finish line, old friend." His voice breaks on the last word. Lisa steps closer, resting her hand on his arm. The preacher begins to speak, his voice calm and steady. Timothy Fleming lived like he rode fast, fearless, and full of fight. But beneath the dust and the pride, he carried a heart that never stopped loving. Ow. The words fall heavy, sinking deep into every soul standing there as the preacher's voice fades. The sound of horses in the distance breaks the silence. A small group of ranchers rides in, each one wearing a black band on their arm. They stop near the gate, hats off, heads bowed. It's an old cowboy tradition, a final salute to one of their own. Amy looks up at them, her tears falling freely now. The wind catches her hair, and for a moment, she swears she can feel him standing beside her, smiling that crooked smile of his. Lou closes her eyes, whispering softly, "Goodbye, Dad." The camera pans across the faces, Georgie holding Caleb's hand, Lisa wiping tears, Jack staring into the open sky. Each person carries a different version of Tim in their heart. The father, the fighter, the friend. The man who never stopped trying to make things right. The voiceover begins gently, almost like a memory being spoken aloud. Heartland has seen its share of loss. But this one feels different. Because some goodbyes don't end with silence, they echo forever in the soil, in the horses, in the hearts left behind. As the final prayer ends, Amy steps forward, holding a white rose. She places it on the casket, her hand lingering on the wood. "I'll take care of the ranch," she whispers, "just like you wanted." The rain begins to fall, light and cold. Lou takes off her jacket and wraps it around Amy's shoulders. Jack lowers his hat, and the family stands together, united again by love, by loss, by Tim. The screen fades slowly. The last image, the white rose on the wooden casket. Trembling under the rain, every story has an ending, the narrator says softly, but legends. They ride on. The rain had slowed, but the world was still weeping. The sky above Heartland hung heavy with clouds, a soft gray curtain that refused to lift. The churchyard was quiet now, the crowd still, the horses tied nearby, shifting restlessly as if sensing the grief around them. And then, Jack Bartlett stepped forward. He took off his hat, holding it to his chest. His boots crunched softly on the wet ground as he made his way toward the casket. No words were spoken, only the sound of the wind brushing through the tall grass and the faint creak of the old oak tree above. Jack cleared his throat once, his voice rough from age, but steady from a lifetime of strength. "Tim Fleming, ... he began, pausing as if even saying the name took something from him. "That boy drove me crazy more times than I can count. Stubborn as a bull, proud as a rooster, and reckless as a storm. But he was family, and he was one of the best damn cowboys I ever knew." The crowd stayed silent. You could almost hear the world holding its breath. Lou wiped her eyes, her fingers trembling against her black coat. Amy looked up at her grandfather, her face filled with both pain and pride. Jack continued, his voice breaking just slightly. "Tim didn't always make things easy. Lord knows we butted heads more than once. But he had a heart that never quit. When life knocked him down, he got back on his horse every single time. Even when he didn't know how to fix things, he tried. And that's something worth remembering." The camera pans slowly across the crowd, faces familiar and full of tears. Caleb stands near the back, head bowed. Lisa's eyes glisten as she listens. Georgie holds Katie close, the younger girl clutching the corner of her drawing like it's the only thing keeping her steady. Jack takes a deep breath, his voice softer now. "You know, Tim wasn't perfect. None of us are. But he loved this place. He loved his girls. Maybe he didn't always say it right, but he showed it in the way he worked, the way he fought for this ranch, the way he looked at Amy and Lou when he thought no one was watching." Amy closes her eyes, remembering Tim standing at the fence, proud but quiet, watching her ride Spartan. Lou remembers the nights he'd call just to ask if everyone was doing okay, pretending it was about the cattle or the weather. Jack looks at the casket, the rain dripping slowly from the brim of his hat. "I like to think he's out there somewhere now, riding free, maybe watching over us, making sure we don't mess up his fences." The faintest smile touches his lips, and the crowd chuckles softly through their tears. Then his tone changes deeper, steadier, filled with the weight of love and loss. "We'll miss you, Tim. This place won't be the same without your noise, your mess, your heart. But you'll always be part of Heartland because this land remembers those who gave it their all." Jack steps back, placing his hat over his heart once more. The preacher nods gently, and for a moment, no one moves. The silence feels holy, the kind that only comes when words have reached their limit. The voiceover returns, low and hauntingly calm. "In every goodbye, there's a promise that love doesn't end here. It rides on the wind, the soil, the heartbeat of the land. And for those who remain, remembering becomes a way of holding on." Camera drifts upward, the oak tree towering above, the casket beneath it, and the family standing shoulder to shoulder, bound not just by grief, but by the legacy of a man who lived, loved, and never stopped trying. The scene fades to black, as the sound of thunder rumbles softly in the distance. Rolling like the echo of hooves across open plains, the sky had turned soft gold by the time everyone left. The rain was gone, but the air still smelled of it, fresh, clean, almost sacred. The churchyard was empty now, except for Amy. She stood there long after the last car had driven away, her boots sinking slightly into the damp ground. Her eyes locked on the fresh mound of earth before her. There were no more words left to say. Everything had already been spoken, the prayers, the promises, the tears. All that remained was silence. In the sound of her own heartbeat, the wind moved gently through the grass, tugging at the hem of her black coat. Somewhere far off, a horse whinnied low, mournful. Like it too was saying goodbye. Amy stepped closer to the grave, her breath catching in her chest. Her fingers brushed the name carved into the headstone. Timothy Fleming, father, cowboy, heart of Heartland. She let her hand rest there for a moment, tracing the letters as though she could feel the warmth of his spirit through the stone. You were always chasing something, weren't you? She whispered softly, her voice barely more than the wind. Dreams, rodeos, second chances. I never really understood until now. She crouched down, pulling a small leather bracelet from her pocket, the one Tim had given her when she was a kid. The leather was worn, the color faded, but the memory behind it was alive as ever. You said this was for luck, she said, a small smile breaking through her tears. I think it worked. It gave me you for all these years. Amy placed the bracelet beside the rose she had left earlier. The camera lingers there, two small tokens of love resting on the soil, symbols of the bond that not even death could break. Then she stood, looking out over the fields beyond the church. The sun was dipping low now, turning everything a deep amber. For a moment, it looked like the light itself was rising from the land, like the world was reminding her that life still goes on. Spartan appeared on the hill, his mane glowing in the sunset. Amy's eyes softened. She walked toward him slowly, her boots brushing through the tall grass. The horse lowered his head, nuzzling her shoulder as if he understood. He's gone, boy, she whispered, her voice trembling. But we'll keep riding, just like he taught us. She climbed into the saddle. Spartan shifted beneath her, steady, strong. Amy looked back one last time at the oak tree, the grave beneath it. The white rose swaying in the breeze. The narrator's voice enters quietly, like a memory floating on the wind. Some goodbyes are loud, filled with tears and promises. Others live in silence, in the soft rhythm of hooves, in the whisper of wind over fields, in the hearts that keep beating for the ones who no longer can. As Amy rides away, the camera follows her through the golden pasture. The horizon glows, wide and endless. The ranch comes into view, its fences, its barns, its stories. Her silhouette fades into the sunlight, her hair lifting in the wind, her hand brushing Spartan's neck. He's still here, she says quietly. Everywhere. Screen fades to a soft white glow, a moment of peace. Then the faint sound of a heartbeat returns. Slow and steady, Heartland breathes again. The night has fallen quietly over Heartland. The stars peek through thin clouds, the ranch bathed in the soft light of the moon. The world feels slower, calmer, like it's taking a breath after a long day of tears. Inside the house, the fireplace glows low, painting the walls with amber light. The air smells of wood smoke and rain. Lou sits at the kitchen table, an untouched cup of tea cooling in front of her. Her hands tremble slightly as she folds and unfolds a napkin, lost in her thoughts. Across from her, Amy walks in, still wearing her riding jacket, her face pale from the chill. Neither of them speaks at first. The silence between them isn't cold anymore, it's gentle, fragile, almost healing. Lou breaks it first, her voice soft but unsteady. You know, I used to get so angry at him, she says, her eyes glistening. For leaving, for coming back, for trying to fix everything and breaking something else instead. She laughs weakly, the sound more like a sigh. But now, I'd give anything to hear him barge through that door one more time, complaining about the feed bills. Amy smiles faintly, her eyes fixed on the flickering fire. He was always loud, she whispers, but I think the noise made this place feel alive. Now it's too quiet. Lou nods slowly, taking a deep breath. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. You could see it in the way he looked at us lately. He was finally learning how to say sorry in his own way. Amy's eyes fill with tears, but she doesn't let them fall. I didn't even say goodbye properly. I kept thinking there'd be time. I thought we'd have another ride, another talk, another fight. Her voice cracks. Now it's just gone. Lou reaches across the table and takes her sister's hand, something she hasn't done in a long time. We all thought there'd be time, she says softly. But maybe that's what Dad was trying to teach us, that you don't wait to love people, right? You do it now. You do it loud. Because one day you might not get to. The camera lingers on their faces to sisters, both strong and broken, holding on to each other like the world might slip away if they don't. The fire crackles gently behind them. The only sound in the room? Amy looks at Lou, her expression softening. You think he knew we loved him? Lou squeezes her hand tighter. He knew Amy. He might not have always said it, but he knew. And he loved us too, even when he didn't know how to show it. They sit in silence again, the warmth of the fire wrapping around them. A framed photo of Tim hangs on the wall behind them, him smiling beside his horse. Eyes bright, alive. The voiceover begins, slow and steady. Morning light spills gently across the fields of Heartland. The mist curls above the grass, glowing gold under the rising sun. The world feels quieter now, not because it's empty, but because it's healing. The storm has passed, and what's left behind isn't just loss. It's love, taking new shape. Amy rides Spartan across the pasture, the rhythm of the horse's hooves steady and strong. Her hair catches the wind, her face calm, almost peaceful. There's sadness in her eyes, yes, but beneath it, there's something else, purpose. Every breath of the land feels alive again. Every sound, every whisper of wind reminds her of him. As she guides Spartan toward the corral, she sees Lou standing by the fence, holding a mug of coffee, watching with that protective, big sister kind of look. Their eyes meet, and for the first time in a long time, they share a smile, small but real. You're up early, Lou calls out, her voice light with warmth. Couldn't sleep, Amy replies, pulling Spartan to a gentle stop. The ranch feels different today, lighter somehow. Lou nods, looking out over the fields. Maybe because we finally let him rest. Maybe he's finally at peace. Amy dismounts, pats Spartan's neck, and joins her sister by the fence. Together, they look at the rising sun, the same sun that had watched over generations of their family. The same sun that will rise long after they're gone. Inside the barn, Jack is repairing an old saddle, his hands steady, his face soft with quiet reflection. Lisa brings him a cup of tea, and he looks up with a faint smile. He'd hate seeing me sitting still this long, Jack mutters. Lisa chuckles, then don't. Keep riding, just like he would. The camera drifts through the ranch, Katie feeding a foal, Georgie brushing a horse, Caleb fixing the fence. Life slowly finding its rhythm again. Amy opens the barn door and steps inside. Sunlight pours in behind her, lighting up the dust motes swirling in the air. She walks over to Tim's old saddle hanging on the wall. For a moment, she just stares at it, her hand trembling as she reaches out to touch it. You're still here, Dad, she whispers. In the horses, in this land, in us. The narrator's voice begins, soft and full of emotion. Heartland was never about one person. It's about the love that binds them all, the laughter, the pain, the courage to keep going when it hurts. Tim's story doesn't end here. It lives on in every sunrise, every ride, every hand that builds and heals this place. Amy takes the saddle down, brushes the leather, and places it on the bench. Lou walks in, resting her hand on her sister's shoulder. Together, they look around the barn, the tools, the horses, all carrying pieces of the man they loved. He built this place with his heart, Lou says softly. Then we'll keep it beating, Amy replies. Outside, the wind picks up again, not cold this time, but warm, carrying the sound of horses running free across the hills. The camera pans wide, capturing the ranch bathed in sunlight. The family standing together by the fence, the voiceover closes the story. Some legacies aren't carved in stone, they're written in the land, carried in the hearts of those who remember. And though one rider's journey ends, the trail goes on. Because here at Heartland, love never dies, it just finds a new way to ride. The screen fades slowly to the image of Tim's cowboy hat resting on the fence post. The wind lifts its brim just slightly, as if he's tipping it one last time. Text on screen. In loving memory of Tim Fleming, a true Heartland legend. Episode 99, Season 19, Fanfiction. Because family always rides together. The music swells, soft guitar, fading into silence. Heartland stands, timeless, unbroken, and forever home.